The Veterans Hospital in Pine Ridge, Montana, sat quiet on most mornings. Nurse Sarah Mitchell had worked there for 3 years, ever since she left the Army. She was 32 years old, with short brown hair and steady hands that never shook, even during the worst emergencies. The other nurses liked her. She was calm, kind, and never complained about the long shifts. But Sarah carried something inside her that nobody at the hospital knew about. She had been a combat medic in Afghanistan. She had served 2 tours, saved 17 lives under fire, and earned a Bronze Star for valor. She never talked about it. She never wore her medals. She just came to work, did her job, and went home to her small apartment where she lived alone with a rescue dog named Murphy. On this particular Tuesday morning, everything changed. Sarah was checking medication supplies in the pharmacy room when she heard the commotion. Voices raised, footsteps running. Dr. Helen Park, the head of the hospital, rushed past with 2 orderlies following close behind. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, stepping into the hallway. "New patient," one of the orderlies said. "Some kind of military case. They're saying he's dangerous." Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. She followed them to the secure wing, where they kept patients who needed special observation. Through the reinforced glass window, she could see a man sitting on the hospital bed. He was big, probably 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a shaved head. His eyes were empty, staring at nothing. His hands were cuffed to the bed rail. "Who is he?" Sarah asked. Dr. Park turned to her, looking stressed. "His name is Marcus Webb, former Special Forces. He was found 3 days ago in the mountains, completely unresponsive. Won't eat, won't speak, won't acknowledge anyone. The VA sent him here because they don't know what else to do with him." Sarah studied the man through the glass. She had seen this before, the 1,000-yard stare, the complete shutdown. This wasn't just trauma, this was something deeper. "What happened to him?" she asked. "We don't know," Dr. Park said. "His records are mostly classified. All we know is he was captured by enemy forces 6 months ago, held for 8 weeks before a rescue team got him out. Since then, he hasn't said a single word to anyone." One of the younger nurses, Carla, crossed her arms. "Why is he cuffed? Is he violent?" "He attacked 3 orderlies at the VA hospital," Dr. Park explained. "Didn't injure them badly, but enough that they decided restraints were necessary. The moment anyone tries to touch him, he reacts. Sometimes he just pulls away. Sometimes he fights, but he never speaks." Sarah watched Marcus Webb for another long moment. His jaw was tight. His breathing was shallow. This was a man who had been broken by something terrible, and now he was locked inside his own mind. "I want to work with him," Sarah said quietly. Dr. Park looked at her with surprise. "Sarah, he's been evaluated by 5 different psychiatrists. Nobody can reach him. The VA is probably going to transfer him to a long-term psychiatric facility next week." "Just give me until then," Sarah said. "Let me try." Dr. Park hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, but be careful. Don't get close enough that he can hurt you, and don't remove those restraints without backup present." Sarah nodded and stepped into the room. Marcus Webb didn't look at her. He didn't move. He just kept staring at the far wall as if she wasn't even there. Sarah pulled up a chair and sat down, keeping a safe distance. She didn't speak right away. She had learned in Afghanistan that sometimes silence was better than words. Sometimes people needed to know you were just there, not demanding anything, not pushing. After 10 minutes, she stood up and left the room. The other nurses were waiting outside. "Well," Carla asked, "did he say anything?" "No," Sarah said, "but I'll be back tomorrow." Carla shook her head. "You're wasting your time. That man is gone. Whatever happened to him over there, he's not coming back." Sarah didn't respond. She just walked back to her station and continued her shift. But something had shifted inside her. She had recognized something in Marcus Webb's eyes. Something she had seen before in the mirror during her darkest days after coming home from the war. He wasn't gone, He was just hiding. And Sarah knew how to find people who were hiding, because she had been one of them. Part 2. Sarah came back the next morning before her shift officially started. She brought a cup of coffee for herself and sat in the same chair, the same distance from Marcus Webb's bed. He hadn't moved since yesterday. The restraints were still on. His eyes were still empty. She didn't try to talk to him. She just sat there, drinking her coffee, letting the silence fill the space between them. Dr. Park stopped by around noon. Any progress? Not yet, Sarah said. Sarah, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the transfer papers are being prepared. The VA has a facility in Colorado that specializes in cases like this. He'll get better care there. Sarah looked up at her. They'll lock him away, you know that. They'll medicate him until he's numb and he'll spend the rest of his life in a fog. That's not care, that's giving up. Dr. Park's expression softened. Sometimes there's nothing else we can do. There's always something else, Sarah said firmly. Just give me the week. Dr. Park sighed but nodded. She left Sarah alone with Marcus. That afternoon, something changed. Sarah was sitting in her usual spot when one of the younger doctors, Dr. Brandon Chase, walked into the room without knocking. He was new, fresh out of medical school, and he had a habit of thinking he knew everything. I'll take over from here, Dr. Chase said to Sarah, not even looking at her. I want to try a different approach. Sarah stood up. Dr. Park assigned me to this patient. And I'm overriding that, Dr. Chase said, stepping closer to Marcus's bed. This man needs professional psychiatric intervention, not a nurse sitting around hopping for a miracle. Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Chase reached out and grabbed Marcus's shoulder, trying to get his attention. It happened in an instant. Marcus's eyes snapped into focus. His body moved like a coiled spring releasing. Even with the restraints on, he lunged forward, his free hand grabbing Dr. Chase's wrist with crushing force. The doctor cried out in pain and shock. Two orderlies rushed in and grabbed Marcus, pulling him back. Dr. Chase stumbled backward, his face pale, clutching his wrist. I told you not to touch him, Sarah said sharply, moving between them. Dr. Chase glared at her, embarrassed and angry. This patient is dangerous. He needs to be sedated and transferred immediately. He needs to be left alone, Sarah shot back. You startled him. You grabbed him without warning. What did you think would happen? I don't take orders from nurses, Dr. Chase said coldly. Especially not from nurses who think they're special because they played soldier for a few years. The room went silent. Sarah felt the familiar sting of disrespect. She had heard comments like this before, from civilians who didn't understand what she had done overseas, from people who saw her as just a woman, just a nurse, nothing more. But she didn't back down. I didn't play soldier, Sarah said quietly, her voice steady. I was a combat medic. I served 2 tours. I saved lives while people were shooting at me, and I know trauma when I see it. This man doesn't need sedation. He needs someone who understands what he's been through. Dr. Chase laughed bitterly. You think you understand him. You think because you handed out bandages in some desert, you know what special forces go through. This man was a trained killer. You have no idea what's in his head. Sarah looked at Marcus. He had gone still again, his eyes back to staring at nothing. But she had seen something in that brief moment when he reacted. It wasn't random violence. It was defense. It was instinct. You're right, Sarah said to Dr. Chase. I don't know exactly what he went through, but I know he's still in there, and I'm not giving up on him. Dr. Chase shook his head and stormed out of the room, still holding his wrist. The orderlies left too, leaving Sarah alone with Marcus once again. She sat back down in her chair. I'm sorry that happened, she said softly, even though she wasn't sure he could hear her. I'm not going to let them give up on you, I promise. Marcus didn't respond, but Sarah thought she saw something flicker across his face, just for a second, a tiny crack in the wall he had built around himself. It was enough to keep her coming back. Over the next 3 days, Sarah established a routine. She would come in every morning, sit in her chair, and just be present. Sometimes she would talk quietly about simple things. The weather, Murphy, her dog, how the hospital garden was starting to bloom. She never asked Marcus questions. She never demanded responses. She just let him know that she was there. The other nurses thought she was wasting her time. Dr. Chase complained to Dr. Park that Sarah was being unprofessional, but Dr. Park let her continue. On the 4th day, something remarkable happened. Sarah was sitting in her chair, talking about how Murphy had stolen a sandwich off her counter that morning when Marcus's eyes shifted. Just slightly, just enough to look in her direction. Sarah stopped talking. She didn't move. She just met his gaze. For the first time in 6 months, Marcus Webb was looking at another human being. And then just as quickly, his eyes moved away. But Sarah had seen it, the connection, the acknowledgement. By the end of the week, Sarah had made more progress with Marcus Webb than anyone expected. He was making eye contact now, brief but deliberate. He would turn his head slightly when she entered the room. Small signs, but they were signs of awareness, of presence. Dr. Park called Sarah into her office on Friday afternoon. "I spoke with the VA," Dr. Park said, sitting behind her desk. "They're willing to delay the transfer for another 2 weeks, but they want to see real progress, Sarah, not just eye contact. They want him communicating, eating on his own, showing signs of recovery." "He will," Sarah said confidently. "I just need more time." Dr. Park studied her carefully. "Why are you so invested in this? You have other patients. This isn't your responsibility." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Because nobody fought for me when I came home," she finally said. "I had nightmares for a year. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't be around crowds. And everyone just expected me to be fine because I looked fine on the outside. I know what it's like to feel broken and have people give up on you." Dr. Park nodded slowly. "All right, 2 more weeks. But be careful, Sarah. Sometimes people are too damaged to put back together." Sarah left the office and went back to Marcus's room. She had brought something with her today, something she had been thinking about for days. She sat in her usual chair and pulled a small photograph from her pocket. It was a picture from Afghanistan, taken during her second tour. Sarah stood in the center, wearing her combat uniform, surrounded by her unit. They were all smiling, arms around each other, dirty and exhausted but alive. "I want to show you something," Sarah said quietly, holding up the photo so Marcus could see it, though she kept a safe distance. "This was my team, 3rd Medical Battalion. We were stationed near Kandahar. The guy on the left is Rodriguez. He used to make terrible jokes to keep morale up. The woman next to me is Lieutenant Chen. She saved my life during a mortar attack." Sarah paused, looking at the photo herself. "2 of them didn't make it home, and the rest of us, we scattered after we got back. I haven't talked to any of them in 3 years. Sometimes I wonder if they're okay, if they're struggling like I was." She lowered the photo. "I know you were special forces. I know your missions were probably classified, probably dangerous in ways I can't even imagine. But I also know you had a team, people you trusted, people who had your back." For the first time, Marcus's face changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes closed just for a second as if he was in pain. Sarah leaned forward slightly. "You're not there anymore, Marcus. You're here, you're safe. Whatever happened to you, whatever they did to you, it's over." Marcus's hands clenched into fists, the restraints rattling against the bed rail. Sarah kept talking, her voice gentle but firm. "But you have to fight your way back. You have to decide that you're not going to let them win. Because if you stay locked inside your own head, they've already won. They've already taken everything from you." The room was silent except for the sound of Marcus's breathing, which had become faster, more agitated. Then, for the first time in 6 months, Marcus Webb spoke. His voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. "They're all dead." Sarah froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. "What?" she said softly. Marcus opened his eyes, and for the first time there was something there besides emptiness. There was pain, raw, overwhelming pain. "My team," he said, his voice cracking. "They're all dead because of me." Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, but she kept her voice steady. "It wasn't your fault, Marcus." "You don't know that," he said, his voice rising. "You weren't there, you didn't see what I did, what I failed to do." "Then tell me," Sarah said. "Tell me what happened." But Marcus shook his head, his eyes closing again. I can't talk about it." Sarah wanted to push, wanted to keep him talking, but she knew better. This was enough for today. He had spoken. He had acknowledged her. That was more than anyone had gotten from him in months. "Okay," she said gently. "You don't have to talk about it now, but I'll be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. I'm not going anywhere." Marcus didn't respond, but Sarah saw his shoulders relax slightly. She stood up and left the room, her mind racing. Outside, Dr. Chase was waiting, his arms crossed. "I heard he spoke to you," he said, his tone skeptical. "Congratulations, but words don't mean he's recovering. He's still dangerous, still unpredictable." Sarah faced him. "He's making progress, that's what matters." "Progress?" Dr. Chase scoffed. "He's a broken weapon, Nurse Mitchell. The military trained him to kill, and now he's too damaged to function in normal society. The kindest thing we can do is make sure he's comfortable and contained." "He's not a weapon," Sarah said firmly. "He's a human being, and he deserves a chance to heal." Dr. Chase shook his head. "You're too emotionally involved. It's clouding your judgment." Sarah stepped closer, her voice low but intense. "You know what your problem is, doctor. You see patients as puzzles to solve or problems to manage, but some people need more than that. They need someone who actually cares whether they live or die." She walked away before he could respond, her hands trembling slightly. That night Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Marcus's words. "They're all dead because of me." She knew that guilt. She carried it herself. Rodriguez and Chen, the two from her unit who didn't make it home. She had been there when Rodriguez died. She had tried to save him, but the injuries were too severe. For months afterward, she wondered if she had done something differently, if she had been faster, if she could have changed the outcome. Eventually, therapy had helped her understand that she wasn't responsible for every life lost in war. But the guilt never completely went away. Tomorrow, she would talk to Marcus again, and somehow she would help him understand that he didn't have to carry that burden alone. The breakthrough came on Monday morning, but not in the way Sarah expected. She arrived at the hospital early and found Marcus's room in chaos. Two orderlies were struggling to restrain him. He was thrashing against the bed, his eyes wild with panic, shouting words that didn't make sense. "What happened?" Sarah demanded, rushing into the room. "He woke up like this," one orderly said. "Started screaming, we don't know what triggered it." Sarah listened carefully to Marcus's words. He was shouting coordinates, numbers, military codes. He was back in Afghanistan, back in whatever hell he had endured during his captivity. "Everyone out," Sarah said firmly. "We can't leave you alone with him," the orderly protested. "Get out," Sarah said louder. "You're making it worse. Too many people, too much noise. He thinks he's under attack." The orderlies hesitated, but something in Sarah's voice made them listen. They backed out of the room, leaving her alone with Marcus. Sarah approached slowly, her hands visible, her voice calm. "Marcus, listen to me. You're not there anymore. You're in Montana. You're at the Veterans Hospital. You're safe." Marcus didn't seem to hear her. He was pulling against the restraints so hard that his wrists were bleeding. Sarah made a decision. She reached forward and unbuckled the restraints. The moment his hands were free, Marcus lunged. But Sarah was ready. She had trained for this. She sidestepped and used his momentum against him, guiding him down to the floor gently, positioning herself so that she was behind him, her arms wrapped around his chest in a restraint hold that was firm but not threatening. "Listen to my voice," she said steadily. "You're having a flashback. Your brain is telling you you're in danger, but you're not. Feel the floor beneath you. This is a hospital floor, not sand or rock. Listen to the sounds. You can hear the air conditioning. You can hear voices in the hallway. This is Montana. This is home." Marcus struggled for another minute, then suddenly went still. His breathing was ragged, harsh. Sarah kept holding him, kept talking. "You're okay. I've got you. You're safe." Slowly, Marcus's breathing began to even out. The tension in his body started to release. "I'm going to let go now," Sarah said. "But I'm right here. I'm not leaving." She released him carefully and moved to sit in front of him, cross-legged on the floor, maintaining eye contact. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. His eyes were red, exhausted. "Who are you?" he asked hoarsely. "My name is Sarah Mitchell," she said. "I'm a nurse here. I was also a combat medic. Afghanistan tour." Something changed in Marcus's expression. Recognition, understanding. "You've been there," he said. "Yes," Sarah said. "Not where you were, not what you went through, but I've been in the sand, I've been under fire, I've seen people die." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "They broke me, 8 weeks. They wanted information about my unit, about our operations. I didn't tell them anything, but they kept. His voice trailed off. Sarah waited. "On the last day, before the rescue team found me, they brought in my team leader's dog tags. They said they had killed everyone. They said I was the only one left alive because I was worthless, because even my own people didn't think I was worth dying for." Sarah felt anger rise in her chest. "They were lying, Marcus. They were trying to break you psychologically." "But it worked," Marcus said bitterly. "Because when the rescue team found me, when they brought me back to base, I learned that my team had been ambushed 2 weeks after I was captured. 4 men dead, including our team leader, Captain Rodriguez." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Rodriguez?" Marcus looked at her sharply. "You knew him." "Different Rodriguez," Sarah said softly. "But I understand what you're feeling. I lost people too, people I couldn't save." Marcus shook his head. "You don't understand. The ambush happened because they were looking for me. They went into enemy territory trying to get intelligence on where I was being held, and they were killed because of me, because I wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough to escape on my own." Sarah moved closer. "That's not true. You survived 8 weeks of torture. That takes incredible strength. And your team, they were doing their job. They were trying to bring their brother home. That's what soldiers do. They don't leave people behind." "But I did," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I left them behind. I'm alive and they're dead." Sarah reached out slowly and took his hand. "You didn't leave them behind. You survived. And now you have to honor their memory by living, by fighting your way back." Marcus looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. "Why do you care? You don't know me." "Because someone should have cared about me when I came home," Sarah said simply. "Because I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning and nobody's throwing you a rope. Because you deserve better than being locked away in some facility where they just medicate you into silence." For the first time since Sarah had met him, Marcus Webb's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to come back," he whispered. "One day at a time," Sarah said. "One moment at a time, and you don't have to do it alone." They sat there on the floor for a long time, neither of them speaking, just holding on to each other's hands. When Dr. Park found them an hour later, she stopped in the doorway, shocked. "Sarah," she said carefully. Sarah looked up. "He's ready to start talking, really talking, but he needs someone who understands. He needs a therapist who has military experience, who has worked with POWs." Dr. Park nodded slowly. "I'll make the calls. Sarah, you probably just saved this man's life." Sarah looked at Marcus. "He saved himself. I just reminded him why it was worth it." 3 weeks later, Marcus Webb sat in the hospital's outdoor garden. No restraints, no guards, just sitting in the sunshine. Sarah sat beside him, both of them watching Murphy chase butterflies across the grass. "Your dog has no dignity," Marcus said, a slight smile on his face. It was the first smile Sarah had seen from him. "He really doesn't," Sarah agreed, "but he's happy, and sometimes that's enough." Marcus had been working with Dr. Ellen Torres, a psychiatrist who specialized in military trauma. The sessions were hard, often leaving Marcus exhausted and shaken, but he was making progress. He was eating. He was sleeping, though nightmares still woke him most nights. He was talking. Most importantly, he was alive in a way he hadn't been when he first arrived. Dr. Chase walked past the garden and stopped when he saw them. He approached, his expression still skeptical but less hostile than before. "Mr. Webb," he said formally, "I'm glad to see you're doing better." "Thanks, Doc," Marcus said. Dr. Chase turned to Sarah. "I owe you an apology, Nurse Mitchell. You were right and I was wrong. I should have trusted your judgment." Sarah was surprised. Dr. Chase didn't seem like the type to apologize for anything. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means a lot." Dr. Chase nodded and walked away. Marcus watched him go. "He gave you a hard time." "Nothing I couldn't handle," Sarah said. "People underestimate nurses a lot, especially female nurses who used to be soldiers." Marcus looked at her seriously. "I wouldn't have made it without you. You know that, right?" Sarah felt her throat tighten. "You would have, eventually. You're stronger than you think." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I would have been lost a lot longer." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus said, "I contacted my unit's chaplain yesterday. He's been helping me reach out to the families of the men who died. I thought they'd hate me, but they didn't. They thanked me for trying to come home. They said their sons and brothers would be glad I survived." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "That's good, Marcus, that's really good." "I'm not all the way back yet," Marcus said. "I still have bad days, still have moments where I'm back in that cell, but I'm starting to believe that maybe I can have a life again. Maybe I can do something that matters." "You already do," Sarah said. "Just by being here, just by fighting." Marcus turned to look at her. "What will you do when I'm discharged? Go back to your regular routine?" Sarah smiled. "Actually, Dr. Park offered me a position heading up a new program, trauma support for veterans, specialized care for soldiers dealing with PTSD, captivity trauma, combat stress. She wants to build something here in Pine Ridge, something that fills the gap between military care and civilian life." Marcus's eyes lit up. "That's perfect for you." "I think so too," Sarah said. "And I was wondering, once you're better, once you're ready, maybe you'd want to help. Maybe share your story with other veterans who are struggling. Let them know they're not alone." Marcus was quiet, considering. Then he nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like to be the person for someone else that you were for me." Sarah felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since leaving the military. 2 months later, Pine Ridge Veterans Hospital held a small ceremony to launch the new trauma support program. Local veterans attended, along with hospital staff and community members. Sarah stood at the podium, nervous but determined. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a veteran, a nurse, and someone who understands what it means to come home from war but still feel like you're fighting. This program exists because I believe that no veteran should have to fight their battles alone. We're here to help. We're here to listen. And we're here to remind you that there is life after trauma, there is hope after darkness." As she stepped down, Marcus took the podium. He looked different now, healthier, more present. He still had hard days, still had nightmares, but he was fighting his way forward. "6 months ago, I couldn't speak," Marcus said, his voice steady. "I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't imagine a future where I wasn't trapped in the past. A nurse named Sarah Mitchell didn't give up on me when everyone else wanted to. She saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She reminded me that I was still a soldier, still a fighter, and that my battle wasn't over, it had just changed. He paused, looking directly at Sarah. This program will save lives, and I'm honored to be part of it. The audience applauded. After the ceremony, Dr. Park pulled Sarah aside. I heard from the VA. They want to replicate this program at other hospitals. They're calling it the Mitchell Protocol. Sarah was stunned. They're naming it after me. You started something important, Sarah, Dr. Park said. You proved that with the right care, the right approach, even the most damaged soldiers can find their way home. That evening, Sarah sat on her apartment steps with Murphy beside her and Marcus sitting next to her. The sun was setting over Pine Ridge, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I never thought I'd be here, Marcus said quietly. Never thought I'd be sitting outside watching the sunset feeling okay. Sarah smiled. You earned this. Every hard day, every therapy session, every moment you chose to keep fighting. You earned this peace. Marcus looked at her. What about you? Did you earn your peace? Sarah thought about it. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like she had. Yeah, she said. I think I finally did. They sat there together, two soldiers who had found their way home, not because the war was over, but because they had learned that healing was its own kind of battle, one worth fighting. And in that moment, watching the Montana sunset, they both understood something important. Strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about putting yourself back together, piece by piece, and helping others do the same. Murphy barked at a passing bird, breaking the quiet moment. Marcus laughed. Your dog really has no dignity. No, Sarah agreed, laughing too, but he's got heart, and sometimes that's all you need. They sat there until the stars came out, talking about the future, making plans for the program, sharing stories of their past without fear or shame. The code that Sarah had spoken wasn't military jargon or secret intelligence. It was simpler than that and more powerful. I understand. I've been there. You're not alone. I won't give up on you.